Hello, ladies, gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages. It is us again. We are back. We are your friends on the other side of the Atlantic. This is episode 3 of our Disney Lorcana trading card game podcast. Both of myself and my lovely co host are based in the UK, and we will be talking about our experiences in our recent release events. It's been a while since we were around. Sorry about that. Life happens, but in the time it's taken between us putting up episode 2 and recording in episode 3 that actually worked, the game has dropped. It is officially out. The first wave of allocations have hit your local stores. You have got your cards in hand. You are enjoying the cardboard crack, and so are we. So we're going to talk about our amazing experiences. As usual, myself, I'm Kev. I will be your co-host, one of your co-hosts for today, and I've got my lovely co-host with me here.
Hello everyone, I'm Alex.
Hello Alex, it's lovely to hear your voice again. It's been a while.
It certainly has. It's been a busy week with Lorcana releasing.
Yeah, who'd have thunk it? We spent so much time, gearing up for the release and playing with proxies and playing lots of games to get a feel of the game, and now it's out. We have them in hand. If you were lucky enough that your store was allocated enough product to get the product into your hands. Fear not, though, if you missed out just recently, the second wave of allocation is hitting in September. It won't be long now.
Indeed. And it's one of the really tricky bits is trying to gauge how it's been across the country, because for myself, Fanboy 3 kind of positioned themselves as like one of the premier stores, and from what I could see, everyone got everything they asked for. There was a lot of cardboard on the tables on Thursday, Friday night.
Yeah, same for us. Excelsior Games in Bristol, we had our release day on Friday, and yeah, everyone had their pre-orders fulfilled. Very, very happy players, young and old, and both experienced and brand new to trading card games were cracking packs and all afternoon building our collections up, and then we got to do our starter deck challenge in the evening. It was a really, really good day. It was so cool just to have so many people just cracking packs and chatting about the game and explaining like why they're fans of the IP or why they've jumped to this card game or whatnot, and it was just a really cool vibe. I imagine Fanboy 3 was a lot the same.
It certainly was. So we had a bit of a warm up. The event started at something at like 9 o'clock in the evening on Thursday, and they really went all out. There was some great big life-size cardboards of various Disney characters. They'd got cakes with Lorcana themed pins stuck into them. There were copies of Villainous and various other Ravensburger Disney games for people to play. It was super fun, super chill. There was clearly a lot of excitement in the air. And then between 11 and midnight, which was a good shout to keep us with something to do, they ran almost like a pub quiz. Lots
Amazing.
of Disney questions, including a music round, which was a lot harder than I was expecting it to be.
Was it like guess the theme tune or guess the tune?
It was very much a guess the tune, and you got like 5 seconds of it at most. And the only one I knew for sure was Robin Hood's Oodalali. Everything else was a bit of shot in the dark for me.
It sounds like a fun time though. I'd have been up there. I'd have been on it, getting those points.
It was. And then midnight, a minute past midnight, everyone went upstairs, and everyone paid for their order and went down, collected it, and my goodness, a lot of booster packs were opened that night. It was a really interesting mix. There were definitely some people there who clearly had some past experience. I think I watched one guy empty out. He'd got one of everything. He emptied it all out, had it all sorted, and was gone in like maybe a couple of hours. Like, you just saw him with this huge pile of things, and the huge piles moved around. He got it exactly how he wanted, packed it all up and left. I was like, all right, fair enough.
Yeah, fair play. Yeah.
I was actually one of the few people who wasn't that bothered about cracking packs that night. I've only opened my 2 starter decks, but one of them had Robin Hood, so I was happy.
Yeah, you've got you. You said you were using your incredible willpower and being very, very temperate with your pack openings.
Yeah, I mean, as it stood, actually, I've had to sell on my booster case. Finances have not been great over here, and it's like, you know what, I'll be able to pick them up again in September, and I just was getting so much anxiety around opening them that I just didn't bother. So, sold them on, not, just enough to cover my costs. I didn't want to scalp it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm gonna be opening booster boxes in September. But I've got my 2 starter decks, and the next few rounds of tourneys at Fanboy 3 are all starter deck based anyway. So I don't feel like I'm losing out anything in terms of like play space. So that'll be good.
That's good. I mean, that's the great thing. I think a lot of stores are certainly doing something similar because there's no rush to build your collection and play core constructed with a full collection, right? I mean, everyone's going to be coming in at the same sort of entry level. So I kind of expect starter deck events to stick around for a while whilst we build up the interest and the local player bases. Maybe mix it up with a little bit of draft. Yeah, I think people can just chill out and build up their play sets and collections, slowly. I'm certainly doing that. I bought 2 boxes and a starter deck, and I'm like, I've barely got a play set of all of the commons, so it's going to take me a while to build my suitcase. But once I've done, I can just build decks willy-nilly, which will be nice.
Who was your so going back to the launch nights, who was your fastest to enchanted?
I think I pulled the first one of the day.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, so myself and a local friend, Jai, we split a case together, and we're both lefties, so we both well, I'll take the left-hand side of the box that I'm sat at, and you can have the left-hand side of the box that you're sat at, and that worked well for both of us. And then, yeah, about 8 packs into my box, I think I cracked the Enchanted Aladdin and was like, oh, all right then.
Yeah, ours was a chap I got chatting to over the night, another chap called Alex, as it would be. He bought himself one of everything, and he thinks, oh, I'll have a look in the trove first. So he opens his trove, he opens his first pack in the trove, and I think it was the Enchanted Simba.
Oh, very nice.
And like his first pack in a trove was an Enchanted Simba. He was very pleased.
Yeah, I think the person who made out best on the day was a local player called Sam, I want to say, and he bought 3 boxes, a gift set, and a trove, and he pulled 3 Enchanteds as he was just cracking, and he was just like, all right, cool, that'll do me. Yeah,
amazing.
So yeah, it was a really good day of just cracking packs. It was really nice because we were there nice and early, and then as people came upstairs to crack packs, we all introduced ourselves and like, hey, nice to meet you, how's it going? And then quite a few people came back for the tournament started at 6 o'clock in the evening, which was really nice.
Yeah, sounds good. That does. We ended up so I got my starter deck, opened it up and sleeved it, and I was just chatting with someone else who was there who I think was one of Alex's friends, and he hadn't actually played Lorcana yet. So I gave him my other starter deck. I'd bought the is it Ruby Sapphire? Anyway,
Emerald Ruby.
That's the one.
Yeah.
Sleeved that all up, and then we had a few single player 1v1 games. That was really nice. I knew he hadn't played before because I managed to beat him, which is, as I'm sure you remember from our games, is a rare thing. And then after that, everyone was still obviously quite focused on opening their booster boxes, but I ended up getting a 5-player game up and running,
Oh, nice.
and that was a lot of fun. I will tell you this: the downtime does not scale as much as I thought it would during bigger games. Like even with 5 players, there were a couple of times where you're like, "Oh, is it my turn? Oh, okay, that was quick." I'll tell you now, something like grab your sword, which hits everything, is absolutely devastating in a 5-player game.
Yeah, it's a good card, that.
But yeah, it was good to play something that big and see how it worked. And yeah, I'm super hyped for it. I'm hoping there is a bit more focus on outside of 1v1s. I think there's a lot of space there for the game.
Yeah, I think you'll probably see that happen. I would imagine that you could find like a 3 or 4 man pod and just play a bit of multiplayer, which would be nice. Again, it's another way of getting everyone involved. The fact that, say, you have like an odd number of players turn up to your local league night, and you can be like, all right, we've got 3 players, so we'll just play multiplayer instead of one person standing out, you know? Hopefully you'll get a lot more than 3 players at your local events, but it's, yeah, you can, like, you know, you can just play some multiplayer, or you can have like a couple of 1v1 games, and you can have a 3-player multiplayer game on the side happening. There's lots of flexibility when it comes to playing this game at your local league nights, and I feel like, certainly from the local players I've met, we're all of the same opinion of like, yeah, we're going to have fun. We don't have to go too mental and too competitive straight away. Obviously, some of our players, myself included, will lean into the competitive nature, you know, just because we've played games so often that we kind of, you know, it's difficult to step down from that mindset. But with Lorcana not offering anything crazy big for the first year, there's really no need to. And you can definitely use that time to pull up your newer players and less experienced players and just be like, no, like, this is how, you know, you need to be thinking when it comes to your plays that you're making. You know, what are you going to be doing during your opponent's turn? You should be thinking about your next move. And then, like, that may change by the time it comes to your turn, but at least you're actively thinking about what you want to be doing. And then, you know, reading the board state and taking in everything that you know, utilising all the available knowledge you have to make the best decision in a game. And even in the starter deck challenge, you know, there was a degree of like, oh, there are actually some key decision points here. You know, even in this very, very limited format, there are decision points that matter. And I'm really excited to see how that grows when it comes to playing full competitive games in a big tournament. It's going to be really, really cool to see how that expands.
Yeah, absolutely.
So did you guys do like a tournament, or were you just casual games all evening?
I mean, given that no one even opened anything until midnight, it was very much a case of I was wandering around asking people, "Hey, do you want to actually play a game of Lorcana?"
I imagine people were probably quite tired, to be honest.
Yeah. So it was like the 1v1s must have been about 2 in the morning. The 5-player game was about 3 in the morning.
Oh my god.
I think we maybe wrapped up by 3.
Yeah.
But yeah, so it was like definitely nothing organised, which made sense. Their first starter deck tournaments are this Sunday at 11 in the morning, and you had 2 options to either buy your own, bring your own, or buy your own. So I'm looking forward to that, although it will be the day after Pride in Manchester, so I'm hoping I'm not too run down.
Oh yeah, that sounds like a great weekend though.
It's gonna be a good one.
I mean, being camp, you know, having a lovely day at Pride, and then just you don't even need to change, mate. Just Yeah, head like get out of the parade, straight down to Fanboy 3. Jobs are good and
Yeah, it's going to be a good one, that is.
that sounds like a fun
But yeah,
time.
so I'm looking forward to that, and then for the next few, like for the next month or so, for this first season, they're doing constructed tournaments, but they're also suggesting people keep bringing starter decks, or at least bring that along. And I think that's one of the things I'm really liking with the point system is that, even if all you do is rock it with a starter deck and get knocked out in the first, in the first round, you've still got time to earn points by by sitting down with newer players and playing with them and scoring points off that.
Yeah, exactly. And that's always a good reason just to have a starter deck built, right? Just be like,
Mm.
I've gone X and 2 in the event. I'll drop from the event, and then I can use my starter deck, and the rest of the time I have here just to teach a new player.
Yeah.
And that's going to be really important going forward. That mentality, just keep it casual. A little bit competitive, but casual, and just remember that there are going to be new players ideally turning up to your locals every week just to play this game. They might see
Yeah.
it. They might see the game in Argos and be like, "Oh, there's a Disney card game. That sounds really cool. How do I play it?" And they'll rock up to it. They may never have stepped foot into your friendly local game store before, but they've, maybe it was a birthday gift or a Christmas gift. Bam! Suddenly they've got these cards. Now they want to learn how to play and play with local people and come into the community. And I think it's going to be really important that the established community just remembers to just be welcoming and opening, and everyone's welcome. Come on in. Here's how you
Yeah,
play.
absolutely.
Just bear in mind
Yeah,
it takes
because I've been hearing rumbles that this is going to be Lorcana might be the big thing for Christmas, which is going to make January a very busy month for game stores.
100%. It if it hits the mainstream, then the sky's the limit, I reckon. And if any card game is going to be able to do that, it's going to be this one.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, especially depending on what they have lined up for the set 2 that drops in. That would be set 2 would be December, wouldn't it, or November?
I would say something like that. Yeah, maybe towards December.
Yeah.
Even more so than Pokemon, which has a dedicated player base and a dedicated fan base. Lorcana, being Disney, that appeals to such a wider demographic of people that just they may never have even thought about stepping into a game shop until they got these cards and this game. The young families that are like looking for something to do in an evening, get the kids off the screens. They've had their screen time. What are we going to do? Let's play some Disney Lorcana.
Absolutely.
That just the potential appeal to such a larger audience is going to be very, very key for this card game, especially if they want to, because they would have plans, like they would have long-term plans and long-term goals, as well as their short-term goals, obviously. But they know where they want to be.
Yeah. It's exciting. It's a very exciting time. It's a very exciting card game.
Yeah, having now played a bit more of it, especially with the real cards in hand, like proxies were great and all, but nothing beats having the real cards in front of you and seeing that artwork and that card layout in actual card form, and it's amazing. Like, they look great. I love that whilst there can be quite a lot of text on the card, they've used a larger font than maybe card games usually would. Which is good, because sometimes you read a Yu-Gi-Oh card or a Magic card and you're like, what does this say? You're squinting and be like, I can't see this. But they've utilized the space they have on that card layout very well, in my opinion.
Yeah, because that was always the tricky bit as well. Was like, someone plays a card that's a wall of text. You need to know what that card is, and Like that for me was always one of the big barriers for Magic. Is I know my opponent wants to have a fairly snappy game, but they play this card. I've got to be like, I'm sorry, mate, you're gonna have to read that out to me because I don't know what that says.
Yeah. Well, ideally, you need to already know before you sit down at the table, like
Uh,
what every card in the game does. Yeah, it's a lot of knowledge to retain.
yeah, it's actually one of those interesting conversations because obviously at the moment it's far too early to discuss set rotation with Lorcana, but it's only on set one. Um, but it is definitely one of those things I hope they do. I think one of the real, and I hope they really do keep a tighter limit on the active card pool. Just because I feel like that is one of the big barriers to a lot of these games is that there's several. I don't even know how many Magic cards are active at any given point, but if it's more than several hundred, you've basically got to give up everything to store all that knowledge,
Yeah.
and it turns them into like lifestyle choices rather than card games. And it's like, oh,
Yeah.
really?
Yeah. There's a degree of that, and at some point, your brain is just going to be like, I cannot remember any more cards. It's not doable. I think maybe we might see a rotation at some point in the future, but also we may just see an unlimited format as well. So like if they do a block rotation, they'll probably have a format where every card is legal anyway.
Yeah.
Much like
I mean,
Magic does.
obviously in the more relaxed spaces, it
I
doesn't.
think
Legality doesn't matter, but
yeah, I think for me, I don't necessarily need to see a rotation at any point in the game, but what I would like to see would be um, regular proof and discussion about from the R&D team about the state of the game and what cards they're keeping an eye on, what decks they're keeping an eye on, just to make sure that they are able to balance things as the game grows. Some card game companies do that, and it's really, really nice that they're so open and transparent with what they think the game state is and how they can manage that. And yeah, I've had some other companies who you don't hear anything, and then you know, every 6 months they might drop an update to a restricted list out of nowhere, and it might be warranted, but you don't. It would be nice to understand the thought processes that lead them to those decisions.
yeah, absolutely, and especially with it being obviously it's not Ryan Miller's, but it is definitely Ravensburger's first go at a TCG. It wouldn't hurt them to have a very transparent process of here's what we're watching, here's what we know we know this card is a bit jank in the current meta, stuff like that. Like it would certainly go a long way to kind of helping people see that this game's got legs and will go far beyond set 8.
Yeah, and they don't need to do any of it. They don't need to do any of that until they start running big events and they have data to work from. At the moment, just play with the cards, play the game, enjoy the game, learn what combos you can do, how your deck works, how the other decks in the game are working, because there's so much variety in deck building. You've got 6 colors, and each color has a pretty significant pool of cards to choose from. So being able to find the synergy between different colors and work out what is the best card in curve slot for your deck is going to be really important. And obviously that's going to be easier to decide now with only one set, but there's still things you have to think about. And some cards are obviously very good, and some cards maybe they're going to need a bit of time and a bit more support to be something. But there's a lot of things you can do in just this current card pool. And we've got some questions being asked about how things work, and there's answers out there. I would like to see a comprehensive rules and FAQ posted soon, and maybe some official tournament floor rules, because we don't really know at the moment if the game is best of 1 or best of 3.
Mm.
We played best of 1 for our starter deck challenge, and I was like, it works, but you could definitely do best of 3. I feel like if a game lasts about 15 minutes, you can make it a best of 3, you know.
Yeah.
But best of 1 for our starter deck challenge, and that worked fine. You know,
I mean, the impression I got looking at some of the material they have handed out to stores is Ravensburger are kind of taking a position of, we don't know. There's a lot of stuff, like, I know with like the tournament points, the tournament rewards, the policy was, this is a guideline, not a rule. And if you think that something else would work better for your community, you are welcome to try and do that instead. So I'd be curious to see if there's anything happening in terms of Ravensburger, like soliciting feedback from stores afterwards, and just be like, how did the first season go? How, you know, what worked, what didn't, and kind of having a much more iterative approach.
Yeah, I'd love to see that. You know, getting feedback and constructive criticism about how things are working is going to be very important. You know, as you say, it's their first rodeo. You know, so there's going to be a learning curve. There's going to be growth pains, but I think they can overcome and adapt quite well. The game has a lot of legs.
Yeah, absolutely.
Did any cards in particular from your starter decks jump out to you in your games that you played?
I'd learnt from past experience, so I was playing the Amber Amethyst deck because everything I'd read online was like, this deck is really easy to pilot. So I'm like, good, I'll do that. And I knew things like mulliganing hard for friends from the other side, or getting a couple of pongos out really early. Not pongos. The chameleon fella.
Pascal,
that was it. Yeah, so it's like even like with my very, very basic knowledge, it was like I knew to mulligan for certain things and to try and get them out as quick as I could. And yeah, I actually don't think at any point I saw the foils. I don't think I ever saw Mickey or Moana in all my games.
Moana's like looking at that deck list, I was like, she's not going to do a lot of work in this list.
And I think that's one of the things I always do like about starter decks is when they position themselves in play a few games, cycle 1 or 2 cards out, play a few games, do it again, and you've got a foundational point to build from. And Moana is very clearly like a hinge point of being like, okay, you've opened a few boosters, a few princesses fell out, try putting them in instead of some other cards.
Oh yeah.
Or if you haven't had any princesses, you know, you kind of take Moana out and try and find something else to put in instead.
Yeah, she's very much a signpost of, this is how card game synergy works. Do they share these traits? Here you go. But I think there's only 1 or 2 other princesses in that deck list that you'll see regularly to make the most of it. But even just using one princess and then standing one princess with Moana's effect is good.
Yeah, it is what am I looking for? It's one of those things that I do really enjoy, is that Lorcana has very much understood that it's people's first.
Yeah.
So it really clearly telegraphs ideas. They may not work, but it telegraphs them from a mile away. Like, you know, you see cards like Hades, which gets a lore for every villain. So you're like, okay, I'm just going to make a deck that's full of villains and see what works. And, you know, when you're first deck building, it can be so tempting to just jump on the internet and find the best deck and go for that. But I think this way of signposting things kind of definitely encourages new players to just be like, well, see what you can come up with. Try this out first. And especially, as we've said several times, there's no big tournament. The only thing you're really playing for is a couple of badges, which if you're really bothered about them, for better or worse, you could buy them on eBay. I have negative thoughts around people who are selling them. Certainly the stores that have clearly just picked them up and turned round. But the stakes are not very high. And that's really good for encouraging players to experiment and try something they may not have a lot of confidence in trying out. It's like you want to try building your own deck, but your Magic tournament costs, however much, and the prize pool is something quite significant. You're like, well, actually, no, I really want to win that. So you realize that you kind of got a net deck because everyone else is going to net deck.
Yep.
But yeah, I'm really quite hopeful that Lorcana not only gets people into the hobby, but helps them learn all the tools they'll need for the hobby.
Yeah, that's it. It's a case of like, this is a learning. You've got learning space and time to just get used to it. Like I say, if it is your first time playing something like this, it's completely different to what you'd expect. And there is a lot to learn to get on the level, but hopefully, as I say, the more experienced players locally will help and support you to give you advice on deck building and why or why not you play cards a certain way, just to really help you level up faster and gain that experience.
Yeah, and in fact, if anyone listening to this is new to Lorcana and is, going to their first tournament event, honestly, go talk to people, ask people these kind of questions, because Lorcana is engineered to reward us for answering you. Like, we have a really strong incentive to help other players.
Yeah.
Outside of it just being the right thing to do. Like, we actually get rewarded for it.
Yeah,
so
and everyone wins.
Do not hesitate to ask questions.
Yeah, get that knowledge. No one's going to judge you for not knowing, right? And yeah, it's just going to be nice to see a community foster that growth and help people gain that experience. If everyone succeeds, if everyone's growing and enjoying themselves, then the community grows and everyone wins, right? Your players win, you win, your local game store wins, and then when you have build up that dedication with your players, I enjoy playing this game, I'm getting pretty good, I've made good friends coming to weekly meetups. It's suddenly, the summer of 2024, there's going to be a big event in somewhere in the UK. Let's go, let's travel, and that's when you really see the benefit of everyone coming together and enjoying like a weekend. Go to Games Expo. There's gonna be a big event next year at Games Expo. I think it would be silly not to.
Yeah, it really would.
Meet the people in the community.
On that note, Kev, I'm afraid I'm going to have to drop off a little bit early, a bit unexpectedly. I can hear doorbells and phone calls going off, so I'm going to dip out. It's been lovely chatting to you.
No worries.
I will leave you to do the outro, and if anyone's around at Fanboy 3, I hope I will see you there at Lorcana. Take care, folks.
Cheers, Matt. Thanks for joining us.
Bye-bye.
All right, well, I've got time just to chill out and ease on to the outro. But before I go, I just want to say thanks to everyone who came to Excelsior Games on release day and everyone I played. Big shout out to all the players that had a good time. And I hope to see you all again regularly when we start our weekly meetups. And again, for Bristol and the surrounding areas, Excelsior will be doing their weekly meetups every Friday, starting from next Friday, which will be the 1st of September. So if you're in or around Bristol, Excelsior Games, Friday evenings from the 1st of September, come and join us. It'll be awesome to have you there. And with that, I'm going to say keep playing, keep going to your locals, build up your communities, and have fun. Thanks for listening. This has been Kev. I will see you next time for episode 4 of Friends on the Other Side. Until then, just be cool.